Okay, we are live on YouTube, so I'm going to ask our five judges, if you don't mind, turn your cameras on super briefly. One, two, three, four, five. Great. All right, so let me introduce our judging panel. We've got a very good one for this 2025 Trial by Combat play-in semifinal round. I'm going to start with Julian Lobato. Julian is a rising 2L at Drexel Klein Law. He was an award-winning AMTA competitor from UNLV, and he is attending Drexel on a courtroom scholarship. We're excited to have him start competing in just a few short months. Alex Madams is a civil defense lawyer in New Jersey. He competed at Drexel Klein on our trial team as well. And he was also a competitor on our trial team on a courtroom scholarship, the same one that Julian is on. You're going to see a theme here. I'm going to introduce next Murray Edwards. Where's Murray? Murray. Murray is an All-American from Furman. She competed at Trial by Combat twice, including finishing third at Trial by Combat 2022. And Murray is also a courtroom scholar at Drexel and a rising 2L. Marique Newbarens is a 3L, just a few weeks away from graduation. Marique competed on UC Irvine's nationals team, where he was also an award-winning competitor. Marique's teams have finished fourth or better 4 times in his 4 semesters as a competitor at Drexel, and he is starting as an associate at Morgan Lewis, a law firm, a national law firm that has an office in Philadelphia. And last but certainly not least, our presiding judge, Danny Kunkel, was the 2018 AMTA national champion and the 2021 TILA NTC runner-up, which is Law School Nationals for those who don't know. She competed in our first trial by combat in 2018. And most importantly, Danny is a civil litigator in Pittsburgh and a coach of Drexel Klein's trial team. So with that, I'm going to ask our scoring judges to turn their cameras off and turn it over to Judge Kunkel. Danny, take it away.
All right. Thank you so much, Phil, and thank you all for being here today. It's my understanding that there are no housekeeping matters in this jurisdiction, but why don't we go ahead and get appearances from both parties, and then we'll move into opening statements.
Of course, Your Honor. Good morning. My name is Neha Das, and today I'm joined by my second chair and witness today, Ms. Patricia Barut.
Good morning.
Together, we represent the plaintiff in today's case, the estate of Dorothy Kachopoli.
All right. Good morning. And from the defense?
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Will Mueller, and today I represent First City here in California.
All right. I guess without further ado, then we'll move right into opening statements. So, plaintiff, take it away.
Yes, Your Honor. And just to make sure, can you see and hear me all right?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Your Honor, Mr. Mueller, members of the jury, and may it please the court. All it took was one order. One order to shut down the beach, and it could have saved a little girl's life. Today, you're going to learn about a beautiful little tourist town off of the coast of California. It's called First City. The tourists love to enjoy the beautiful blue skies, sunny weather, and crystal clear waters. They think that when they come, they're going to have a nice, relaxing vacation. But some of those tourists don't make it out of those waters alive. Because today you're going to learn about not one, not two, but 3 deaths on one beach in the span of 10 days. 3 deaths that evidence suggests are linked to shark attacks. 3 deaths that were preventable by just one order from one mayor to shut down the beach. But because that one order that could have saved a little girl's life was never made, a 6-year-old little girl paid the price. Today, you're going to learn that the mayor of First City, Chris Weems, received warning after warning, day after day about the dangers of the waters and chose not to close the beaches anyway. So, on July 4th, 2022, a 6-year-old girl named Dorothy Kachopoli was playing in the water with her family. And that crystal clear blue water turns bright red with her blood. And she panics. She starts flailing her arms in the air for help, but it doesn't work. People on the shore are screaming, "Shark, shark!" But that doesn't help either because a great white shark darted towards little Dorothy's body, took a bite out of her side, and in just 1 minute, she bled to death. All because that one order that could have saved her life was never given. That's why, as the plaintiff, we're suing the defendant for Dorothy's death, which means we had the burden to you by a preponderance of the evidence, which simply means even slightly more likely than not, a couple things. First, that the conditions on that beach were dangerous, that these dangers were the direct and proximate cause of Dorothy's injuries, that this danger was reasonably foreseeable to the defendant, and the defendant knew about these dangers with enough time to remedy them. And we're confident that we'll meet that burden today because we'll call one witness to the stand. Dr. Dana Shaw. She's an expert marine biologist for over 20 years, and she investigated all 3 deaths at that beach. And she's going to tell you that she issued warning after warning, day after day to the mayor about the possibilities of sharks in the water. And despite that, the mayor didn't close down the beach. Dr. Shaw is also going to tell you that she told the mayor that just one shark can attract more sharks, creating more danger, and still, the mayor didn't shut down the beach. And to build his case, we expect that Mr. Mueller is going to call the mayor of First City herself. But we expect that all the mayor is going to tell you is what we've been telling you, that she was warned over and over again about the dangers of those waters and refused to shut down the beach. She's also going to tell you why. Because we expect that on cross-examination, she'll have to admit that she has sole authority to shut down the beach. It's even easy. You'll learn that she's up for re-election. You'll learn that her city can only survive with tourist dollars. And when the beaches are shut down, tourists leave, and they leave with their money. That one order that could have saved a little girl's life was never given despite warning after warning, day after day. And because of it, a little girl who had her entire life ahead of her is no longer with us. And that's why at the end of today's trial, I'm going to come before you again and we'll speak one more time. And I'll ask you to deliver the only verdict that the evidence is consistent with. Find the defendant, First City, liable. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, counsel. We'll hear the opening statement from the defense now.
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, members of the jury, their response was reasonable. It's July 1st, 2022, a warm summer night right here in California. A crowd of people are gathered on the pier. They're staring at a shark, an 11-foot-long, 1,000-pound shark. That shark, it's not in the water. It's hanging from a hook. It's been caught. Caught because it attacked someone on the beach. And now that it's been caught, the city can welcome people back into the water. But not without taking precautions. A patrol boat out in the water. Shark spotters stationed on the shore. Before June of 2022, the city had never seen a shark attack. And they were committed to keeping it that way. But on July 4th, the unthinkable happens. Another attack. Another victim. What happened was horrible. But the evidence will show it wasn't the city's fault. Their response was reasonable. Today, the plaintiff is suing the city They have to prove that the city knew or should have known that the beach was dangerous. But as the judge will explain, even if they knew the beach was dangerous, if they took reasonable steps to keep it safe, well, then they can't be held responsible when something goes wrong. Today, we're going to give you two reasons to find for the defense. The beach was safe, and the city took reasonable steps to keep it that way. So let's start with that first fact. The beach was safe. Now, members of the jury, you're going to get a chance to look at a picture of South Beach today. There are no dangerous waves, no dangerous rocks, and no sharks. You'll learn that's for good reason. You're going to learn that before June of 2022, there weren't any shark attacks on South Beach, not a single one. The evidence will show the beach was safe. And that brings us to the second reason we're going to ask you to find for the defense. The city took reasonable steps to keep it that way. Plaintiff just got up here and they told you that there was a shark attack in 2022, in June. That's true. But you're going to learn that in response, the city took reasonable steps to keep the citizens safe. You're going to learn that they hired dozens of police officers, that they went out and caught the shark and killed it. Members of the jury, I want to introduce you to the person who was behind the city's response. Ms. Weems, could you turn on your camera? Members of the jury, this is Krista Weems. She's the mayor of First City, California. Some of you might recognize her. She's been in public service for years because she cares about her community. Thank you, ma'am. You can turn your camera off. Today, members of the jury, Ms. Weems, she's going to take the stand. She's going to tell you about the safety steps that they took, about how they put a patrol boat out in the water, about how they hired shark spotters. Now, the plaintiff just told you in their opening statement that the city should have just shut down the beaches. Ms. Weems, she's going to be upfront. She's going to tell you that when the city was considering what to do, they considered the cost. Not because it was all they cared about, not because they cared about it more than safety, but because they had to. You're going to learn that their decision wasn't based on how much money it was costing them. It was based on statistics, data. And the data told them they had no reason to worry. Members of the jury, I want to be clear. What happened that day was a tragedy. No one is going to tell you otherwise. But today, it's your job to separate the tragedy from the facts. The fact is, the city did what they could. Their response was reasonable. That's why I'm going to come before you at the end of this trial and ask that you find the city not liable. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Give us just one moment to mark our ballots, and then we'll hear from the first witness from the plaintiff. All right, counsel for the plaintiff, you can call your first witness.
Yes, Your Honor, at this time, the plaintiff calls Dana Schott to the stand. May I proceed?
You may.
Hello, can you please introduce yourself to the court, spelling your last for the record?
Dana Schott, that's spelled Schott.
Well, good morning, Dr. Schott.
Counsel, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I cannot hear your witness. You're muted right now. I don't know.
I'm so sorry. My apologies, Your Honor. Could we just have 1 minute to sort out the sound issue?
Yeah, I could hear her like just a little bit, but it was very faint.
Yeah, our plan to use one mic didn't work. Just 1 moment.
Sorry, I didn't mean to throw off your plan.
No, Your Honor, it's completely my fault. I apologize. And
No, you have nothing to apologize for.
Hello, Your Honor. Can you hear me better now?
Yes, thank you so much.
hello, Dr. Schott. Good to have you back. Could you tell me what you do for a living?
Yes, I'm an oceanographer and I have been for the last 22 years. I specifically specialize in all things ocean and sharks.
And what qualifications do you have?
Well, I've been an oceanographer for the last 22 years at the Oceanographic Institute, and for the last 10 of those years, I've actually run the shark research program. I also have a bachelor's, master's, and PhD in marine biology.
So today I want to talk to you a lot about sharks. Do you have any experience in researching sharks?
Oh, yes. Aside from those 10 years of running a shark research program, I've also written 8 peer-reviewed articles, and I've spent months at sea with shark experts doing even more research.
And why are you here today?
Well, I was initially hired by First City to determine whether or not there were potential shark attacks at their beach. And through that, I was able to look into the case of a Francesca DiGoggio. I believe that's how it's pronounced, as well as I got to learn about the cases of Paul Parisi and Dorothy Capciopoli.
And what materials did you review in your investigation?
Well, aside from looking at Miss Francesca's remains, I was also able to witness the deaths of poor Paul and Dorothy in my time, and I conducted some more research on my own.
And were these materials sufficient for your conclusions?
Oh, yes, they were.
And did you use a method at all, doctor?
Well, as an oceanographer, I know that I can look at bite marks and specific remain marks that are left in terms of the ligatures to determine whether or not an incident could have been caused by a shark and to determine what sort of shark it could have been.
And did you reliably apply that method to the facts and data that you gathered?
I did, yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the plaintiff would like to formally tender this witness as an expert in oceanography, specializing in sharks specifically.
Okay, any objection from the defense?
No objection to those qual.
Okay, thank you. You can proceed. She'll be tendered or accepted as an expert in that field.
Let's walk through the incidents that you mentioned earlier. Can we use that timeline you showed me earlier to walk through those?
Oh, yes, just give me one moment to pull that up.
Your Honor, permission for this witness to make use of a demonstrative aid.
Any objection?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead.
Now, what was the first incident that you were made aware of at First City, Doctor?
Well, the first incident is the one I was hired for. The body of Francesca Cacho, I believe is how it's pronounced, was found on on June 25th, 2022.
What did you learn from looking at her remains?
Well, I learned that her remains were or could be consistent with a shark attack. Really anything that has a sharp edge and is able to cut through human flesh.
And did any evidence point to a particular species of shark?
Well, yes, looking at the specific ligature marks, it could point to a great white shark based on my research.
And did you speak with anybody about that?
Yes, I did. I spoke with the mayor of First City, along with Officer Polk and a medical examiner.
What did Officer Polk say?
Well, at one point, Officer Polk said, "You said over the phone that it was most likely a shark attack. That's what the report says."
And who was Polk talking to at this point?
Polk was talking to Dr. Rizvani, that medical examiner.
All right, well, did you warn the mayor at all?
Of course I did, yes. On that very day, I told the mayor that the beaches should remain closed so that we could look into if there is a shark.
And did the mayor close the beach?
No.
All right, well, let's move on to that second instant. How did you come to observe the death of Paul Parisi?
Well, I was on the beach that day. It was June 29th that I observed this. Little Paul, he was about 70 yards away from shore on his little raft when I saw him be dragged underwater and dragged through the water. I heard him scream for help. I saw blood in the water, and I heard people on shore yelling, "Shark, shark." I was also able to see two of the shark's fins, its dorsal fin and its pectoral fin.
Did you see anything about the shark that could pinpoint it as the tiger shark species?
No.
And this pectoral and dorsal fin, do great white sharks have those too?
Yes.
And do you think it was a tiger shark that killed Parisi or DeJaco?
No, I don't. Looking at the bite marks or the ligature marks left on the body and analyzing that in comparison with the teeth of each of these distinct sharks, I don't believe that it was a tiger shark that caused either of those incidents.
And are you aware of any sharks that were caught and captured after Parisi's death?
Yes, I am aware that a tiger shark was caught on July 1st of 2022.
And were you able to confirm that this shark that was caught actually killed Paul?
No, I wasn't. I wanted to conduct an autopsy, but the mayor said that I could not.
And did you communicate any other concerns after you couldn't confirm that this shark was the one that killed Parisi?
Yes, I did. I told the mayor that I believed that the shark was still out there and the beaches should remain closed. I also told the mayor that one shark being in a specific area can actually attract more sharks to that area, almost like a domino effect. And that when one shark doesn't lose its food source or is able to stay in the same area and have a food source, it's less likely to leave.
And after you told the mayor that the shark could still be out there, did she shut down the beach then?
No.
Well, I want to move on to that third instance. Did the mayor ever say anything to you about why the beach was open on July 4th?
Yes. She said, "We're a summer town. We need summer dollars. If we close down the beach, we're ruined. We're finished."
Uh-huh. And what were you doing that day?
Well, the mayor didn't let me close down the beach, but she did say that I could implement some safety measures if I wanted to. So on that day, I was one of those safety measures. I was in a boat on those waters.
I want to talk about the effectiveness of those measures. What happened after you were patrolling in the waters?
Well,
Objection? Vague.
May I respond, Your Honor?
You may.
Your Honor, this is not vague enough to be confusing to the jury. I'm simply asking what happened after she was set out patrolling, and if I may proffer,
You may.
fact, this witness is just going to testify what she saw. Earlier, she said that when she was patrolling, that's when she observed the decedent in today's case, Dorothy Kachopoli, die. I don't believe it's vague enough to confuse the jury. I'm just asking about how she was patrolling and how she observed the incident, Your Honor.
Okay, response?
Your Honor, we believe that after you were on patrol is too vague a time frame. They can specify what incident they're talking about.
Okay, the objection's overruled. You can proceed.
Oh, Doctor, what happened after you were out on patrol on July 4th?
well, that's when I saw this girl. Her name was Dorothy with her mother, Julia. They were in the waters, and a great white shark had begun attacking them. It bit the side of poor little Dorothy. I immediately rushed over to her on my boat, but it was too late. By the time I arrived, she had bled out.
Thank you, Doctor. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Okay, thank you, counsel. Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor, may I proceed?
You may.
Good morning, Dr. Schott.
Hi, good morning.
Start by talking about how you got involved in this case. You're asked to consult on a shark attack, right?
Yes, I was for the death of Miss Francesca DiGaggio.
Like you told us a moment ago, on June 26th, a woman's remains washed up on the beach, right?
Yes, the remains had washed up on the 25th, and I was able to examine her body on the 27th.
After you conducted your examination, you thought she could have died of a shark attack, right?
Yes,
But you weren't sure.
No, I couldn't be sure, but I was very suspicious that it was a shark attack, and the marks were consistent with a shark attack.
Ma'am, that's a yes, you weren't sure.
No, I was not 100% sure.
You actually marked the cause of death as undetermined, right?
Yes, I did. At the time, it was undetermined. I didn't know.
After you finished your analysis, you ended up staying in town, right?
I did, yes. I initially planned on leaving on June 30th, but because of Paul Parisi's death on June 29th, I was asked to stay a little bit longer, so I extended my trip.
That's right. You stayed because you saw an incident which your boy was killed in a shark attack, right?
Yes.
After that incident, you know that the city closed its beach.
Yes, for 3 days after that incident, the city closed its beach.
And after 3 days, they reopened, right?
Yes, although this was against my advice.
Ma'am, I want to talk about whether the city took reasonable steps to ensure safety before they reopened the beach.
Objection. Attorney testifying, if I may.
You may.
Opposing counsel just said to my witness, I want to talk about whether the city took reasonable measures after this incident. It's clear that opposing counsel, Mr. Mueller, is laying onto the record the theme that he discussed in opening statements. He's not eliciting facts from my witness. He's simply arguing or testifying onto the record.
May I respond, Your Honor?
You may.
There's no statement being given here. I'm headlining for the jury what I'm going to talk about in my next line of questioning.
Your Honor, if I may.
Briefly.
Sorry, Your Honor, I would also object to improper expert legal conclusion. Opposing counsel is asking the witness whether the city took reasonable measures after an incident. And whether the city acted reasonably is actually a legal conclusion. It's part of the defense's burden. And that's something that the fact finder, the jury, should be left to determine, not a marine biologist. Because of that, we'd also like to add on that objection of improper legal conclusion.
May I respond, Your Honor?
You may.
Your Honor, there's no question pending. I'm not asking this witness to come to a conclusion.
While I think that some signposts can be counsel testifying, I don't think that this one is. So I'm going to overrule the objection. And on the improper legal conclusion, I agree that it's not a question. But if you think that any of the phrasing of the questions tends to ask this witness to delve into that standard, then go ahead and renew your objection. So overruled.
Yes, Your Honor.
So, ma'am, let's talk about whether the city took reasonable safety measures. You know that before they reopened the beach, the mayor hired police officers, right?
Yes, I believe about a dozen police officers, along with, it was 3, I believe, shark watchers and myself. But this wasn't right after they opened the beach. They hired them for July 4th after I strongly advised the mayor to close down the beach, and I would have been more comfortable with closing it down.
Ma'am, I understand you're telling us you were more comfortable with closing it down. Right now, I just want to talk about what the city did and didn't do. And that's a yes, they put police officers out on the beach, right?
Not immediately when they opened it. They reopened the beach on the 2nd. They did not put them in place until the 4th.
On the 4th, they put police officers on the beach.
Yes.
A dozen police officers.
Yes.
They hired 3 shark spotters, right?
Yes, the police officers and the shark spotters were all on the beach, not in the water, though.
Those are people who are specifically trained to identify and respond to shark attacks, right?
Lack of personal knowledge, if I may.
You may.
Opposing counsel is asking this witness to testify to what shark spotters are trained to do. She is not a shark spotter. There's been no foundation that she spoke with those shark spotters. So there's a lack of personal knowledge to ask this witness about those shark spotters' specific training.
May I respond, Your Honor?
You may.
First of all, this is cross-examination. If the witness disagrees with the question, she can say that. But, Your Honor, we have a good faith basis to believe she has to say yes because she was part of the operation to hire those shark spotters and saw them on the beach on July 4th, looking in the water and monitoring the water.
Yeah, counsel for the plaintiff isn't your expert, and I'm gonna botch this, but isn't she like an expert in sharks and marine biology and all of that? I mean, how does she not know what a shark spotter is trained to do?
Your Honor, we believe that while she's an expert in marine biology and analyzing shark bites and shark shark bites and shark marks. That's specifically distinct from being a shark spotter. A shark spotter is a person who patrols waters. Marine biologists don't patrol waters. They don't observe over long distances to try and find dangers in the waters, but rather they do more close examination, as this witness has done in today's case.
I appreciate the argument, but I think I disagree. We'll see. Maybe the witness is going to say that she doesn't know that, but I'm going to overrule the objection.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ma'am, you know what a shark spotter is, don't you?
I do.
You know that they're put on the beach to monitor the water, right?
Yes.
On July 4th, you saw the shark spotters monitoring the water, right?
I saw 3 of them, yes.
But you didn't think that was enough?
I personally, I would have been far more comfortable having the beaches closed. I don't know if that would have been enough. I just know that I would have been more comfortable had the beaches been closed.
Ma'am, you're telling us that you would be more comfortable with the beaches being closed because you thought there was still a shark in the water, right?
I actually didn't think that they found the right shark. I did not think that the tiger shark was responsible for either of the prior attacks. And I did not think that, and I believe that the shark that caused those attacks was still in those waters, yes.
So you went and you told that to the mayor.
I did?
Ma'am, as an expert, you know conclusions should be based on evidence, right?
Yes.
Conclusions should be backed up by evidence, right?
Yes.
Ma'am, you told the mayor to close the beaches because you found a shark tooth, right?
That's not the only reason I told the mayor to close the beaches. I explained to the mayor in full detail exactly why the shark bite patterns of a tiger shark do not match those of a great white shark, and I'd be happy to go into more detail as to those differences.
Ma'am, when you went to the mayor, you told her that you had found a shark tooth, right?
That's one of the many reasons I told her we should close down the beach, yes.
But you didn't collect that tooth, did you?
Unfortunately, no, I had dropped that tooth. I believe you're referencing a little event that I took with Chief Polk where we went out on the beach and I took a dive where I found a boat with a hole in it and there was a tooth. Now, I'm 90% sure that this tooth belonged to a great white shark, but I unfortunately did lose the tooth.
Your Honor, motion to strike everything after the witness said yes.
Any response from plaintiff's counsel?
Your Honor, I believe that her answer was responsive to the question which surrounded what happened to the tooth. She's specifically saying she dropped it, but when she did have it, she was 90% sure that it was a great white shark tooth. It's not non-responsive to the topic of Mr. Mueller's questions.
May I respond, Your Honor?
You may.
My question was, you didn't collect that tooth? She said yes, and then went on to give the jury an explanation as to why she didn't and how that doesn't impact her conclusion. Your Honor, everything after she said yes is non-responsive to the question.
I tend to agree. I'm going to strike that testimony and ask the witness to answer just the question asked by the attorney. If you need to elaborate some on that, you can, but if it's kind of explaining other circumstances, save that for redirect and your counsel can get that information if we need it.
Ma'am, you didn't collect that tooth.
No.
Don't have GPS tracking showing there's a shark in the water, do you?
No.
Don't have photos?
Well, at the time, though, I didn't have photos. I was fairly certain there was a shark in the water based on the teeth marks, though.
That's yes, didn't have any photos.
No.
So then let's talk about whether this accident was foreseeable. You and I can agree that shark attacks are rare.
Objection to improper legal conclusion, if I may.
You may.
Your Honor, to say to this witness, I want to talk to you, let's talk about whether this was foreseeable, it's indicating to the jury and to the witness that they're going to talk about foreseeability. And again, it's part of the burdens of the plaintiff and the defense, that element of foreseeability, and thus it's an issue for the fact finder. And we believe it's improper at this moment to discuss foreseeability and that specific legal word of foreseeability with this witness who's a marine biologist.
May I respond, Your Honor?
You may.
Frankly, we don't understand counsel's issue here. There is no question pending, and it's not improper to tell the jury that we're going to talk about foreseeability, which is at the heart of this case.
Yeah, I think this is a little bit similar to last time where if there was a question pending, I would have an issue, but it is just kind of signposting for the jury, letting them know where he's going. I think this one's a little closer, so I appreciate the objection, but I'm going to overrule it. Counsel, you can proceed.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor. Ma'am, shark attacks are rare, right?
Um, I mean, sure, I guess you can say that.
Showing the witness Exhibit 3, Your Honor, this is already in evidence per stipulation.
Okay, thank you.
Ma'am, this is a chart showing the rate of shark attacks in the state of California, right?
Yes, it is.
Let's start by taking a look at the last 5 years. In the last 5 years, there have been 29 shark attacks in California, right?
Do you mean the last 50 years?
No, ma'am, in 2020, looking at the bottom there.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Only 3 of them resulted in a fatality.
Of the 29 shark attacks, sure, but that's only referencing the statistics that have actually been found and recovered, or the cases that have specifically been deemed shark attacks.
Ma'am, that's a yes.
Yes.
So let's look at the totals. Now, not including this case, there have been 215 shark attacks in California, right?
And since 1950, yes.
Only 16 of them resulted in a death.
Of the ones recorded, yes.
Ma'am, I want to be really clear. These statistics aren't just for one city, are they?
No, they're for California, but I believe that you're leaving something very important out here. All 16 of those shark attacks have been great white sharks. It's very specific circumstances.
Ma'am, that's a yes. These statistics aren't for one city,
No, they're not.
for an 840-mile long coastline.
Yes.
Before this case, you can't tell us that a single one of these incidents with a great white shark occurred on South Beach, can you?
Before this case, no, but just because something didn't happen in the past doesn't mean it won't happen.
Ma'am, is that a yes or a no to the question?
It's a yes.
Before this case, you can't tell us that a great white shark was ever seen on South Beach, right?
Well, I don't really know about South Beach's shark history. All I can tell you is it doesn't matter whether or not there was a great white shark there in the past. The fact that we did find one at South Beach for this case in specific tells us that it's possible.
Ma'am, you're an expert in oceanography and you're telling us you can't tell us about the history of these sharks?
I can tell you about the history of great white sharks, I can, but to tell you whether or not there's ever been a shark at South Beach, you'd have to ask someone who's maybe studied that beach a little closer.
So, ma'am, that's a yes. You can't tell us there was ever a great white shark seen on South Beach. True?
I can't tell you, no.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, counsel. Any redirect examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
You can proceed whenever you're ready.
The opposing counsel just asked you if there was ever a great white shark seen on South Beach. Can you remind the jury what type of shark killed Dorothy Kachapoli?
It was a great white shark.
And opposing counsel asked you a lot of questions about those statistics. What percentage of all of the fatal attacks on California's coast were a great white shark?
100%. And actually, I believe that 188 out of those 215 total shark indications, or excuse me, instances, were great white sharks.
And according to that data that Mr. Mueller showed you, was there ever a fatal shark attack involving a tiger shark?
No, not in the
And,
last 70 years.
and what was the shark that was caught on July 1st before the reopening of the beach?
A tiger shark, though I didn't believe that was the shark.
Thank you, Doctor. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Okay, I will admit I don't know if this jurisdiction allows recross, but I'll ask for it just in case.
No recross, Your Honor.
Okay, witnesses excused. I know we normally would not take a recess. I need just 2 minutes to go grab a quick tissue. I'm sorry, I'm a little under the weather, so give me 2 minutes and we'll be right back. Okay, sorry, that was probably faster than 2 minutes, but thank you guys for the court's indulgence or whatever the phrase is. Anything further from the plaintiff?
None, Your Honor. The plaintiff rests his case in chief.
All right, counsel for the defense, go ahead and call your first witness.
Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls Krista Weems. May we proceed?
You may.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Please introduce yourself to the members of the jury.
Hi, my name is Krista Weems.
What do you do for a living?
Currently, I serve as the mayor here at First City. I'm in the final year of a 4-year term.
How long have you been in public service?
Most of my adult life, I love this community. I served on the city council for around a decade or so before joining the board of trustees. After spending years talking and working with the people of First City, I wanted to for mayor to make sure their voices were actually heard.
Can you tell us a bit about First City?
Of course. First City is this lovely little beach town right here in Southern California. Year-round, we have about 4,000 residents, but in the summer, our population swells closer to 6,000 with the tourists that we get.
Showing the witness Exhibit 2. Ma'am, do you recognize this?
I do. It's South Beach.
Does it look fair and accurate as of July of 2022?
I'd say so.
The defense offers Exhibit 2.
Any objection?
None, Your Honor.
Okay, Exhibit 2 is admitted.
I want to talk about what we see on this beach. Do you see any big rocks in this photo?
No, I don't.
Do you see any reefs in the water?
Not from here, no.
Objection to relevance, if I may.
You may.
Your Honor, this line of questioning as to whether there are reefs and rocks in the water don't go to make any fact more or less probable. It's been stipulated by both sides that we agree the cause of death for Dorothy Kachopoli was a shark attack. So these other dangers that Mr. Mueller is listing don't go to make any fact more or less probable in today's case.
Okay, response?
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff has to prove a dangerous condition, so it's relevant whether there's anything else at the beach was dangerous. Now, so far, all we've heard about are sharks, so I'm making sure there isn't anything else that might have presented a danger that summer, which is part of the plaintiff's burden.
Your Honor, if I may.
You may.
The dangerous condition is also the dangerous condition that the plaintiff has to prove is the proximate cause of Dorothy's death. And since we've stipulated that the cause of Dorothy's death was a great white shark, then the dangers that should be discussed in trial are related to sharks and their presence, not rocks or reef or coral. That doesn't make any fact or part of anybody's burden more or less likely.
Yeah, I think it's probably like maybe just the smallest molecule of relevant. And as we know, it's a very low bar. So I'll let this go, but wrap it up quickly, counsel, or you can renew Ms. Doss if it goes too far. So overruled.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ma'am, do you see anything dangerous in this photo?
No, it looks the way our beach always looks.
Thank you. We can take down Exhibit 2. Ms. Weems, have you been in court with us today?
I have.
Have you heard the plaintiff say that the thing that made this beach dangerous was that there was a shark in the water?
I did, yes.
Did you know there was a shark in the water when Dorothy Kachopoli died?
No, of course not.
What did you know?
Look, what happened that summer was awful. It still pains me to this day to think that 2 children died that June, but before that summer, there had never been a shark attack at South Beach. Never. And after what happened to Paul Parisi, we did everything we thought we could do to prevent another attack from happening.
Before we get into the events of this case, I want the jury to get a sense of how common shark attacks actually are in this area. We're putting Exhibit 3 on the screen. Again, it's already in evidence. Ma'am, are you familiar with these statistics?
Yeah, there are statistics of shark attacks in the past few years in California.
And how about data relating to South Beach specifically?
Um, well, I know that there was just one shark attack in South Beach.
Well, then I want to put this information together for the jury. Your Honor, we're showing a visual aid to count the number of shark-related injuries in this area. Ma'am,
Sorry, just one second. Any objection from counsel?
Not at this time, Your Honor, but I believe that this is going to evolve a little later, and we'd like to reserve the right to object if necessary.
Of course. Okay, sorry about that. You can proceed, counsel.
ma'am, how many shark-related injuries were there before July of 2022?
Well, from what I know from that previous chart, there were 116.
How many were at South Beach?
It was just one.
Thank you, ma'am. We can take this down. Now let's talk about the incident in this case. When did the first incident happen?
It was June 29th. That's when Paul Parisi died.
Were you at the beach when Paul Parisi died?
Yeah, I was actually there with my daughter when I heard screaming. It became clear right away that something terrible had happened in the water.
So what did you do?
I closed the beaches immediately.
How long did you keep the beaches closed after the incident?
We kept them closed for 3 full days, June 29th, June 30th, and July 1st. During that time, we were just trying to figure out what was going on and gather information on what was happening to see if there was any ongoing threat.
After that shark had been caught, or excuse me, during that time, was a shark ever caught?
Yeah, on July 1st, a fisherman caught a tiger shark. I was relieved. I thought the problem was gone.
And after that shark was caught, what did you decide to do?
To improper expert opinion, if I may.
You may.
This witness just testified that the problem was gone after the tiger shark was caught. That requires her to use specialized technical knowledge that she clearly doesn't have and foundation hasn't been laid for, that the shark that was caught was actually the one that killed Parisi. We've heard no foundation for that. It would require marine biologist training or expertise.
May I respond, Your Honor?
You may.
Your Honor, I believe the testimony on the record is that she thought the threat was gone. And that's important for the jury to hear because part of the plaintiff's burden today is to prove that they knew or should have known of the dangerous condition.
Last word, counsel for the plaintiff.
Your Honor, whether or not the witness testified, I thought the problem was gone or the problem was gone, the problem was gone. That phrase is still on the record for the jury to hear. And we believe that that's improper, whether it's prefaced with I thought or not, because this witness doesn't have the expertise to even come to that conclusion in her head or to actually conclude it definitively, because she doesn't have the expertise to testify that a specific shark caused a specific incident.
I disagree. I do think the fact that she said I thought is kind of the turning phrase here. I think that goes to weight, not admissibility. So if you would like to bring it up on cross, you may. Objections overruled.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ma'am, were you finished with your answer?
Yeah, I mean, once that tiger shark was caught, I thought the threat was over.
Were you here for the plaintiff's opening statement?
Yeah, I was.
Did you hear them say that you should have never reopened that beach because there was evidence of another shark in the water?
Yeah, I heard her say that.
Did you ever personally see that evidence?
No, the oceanographer thought that she'd found a tooth somewhere, but she dropped it in the ocean, so it was sort of hard to rely on that.
Let's talk about whether or not you took any steps to keep the city safe after that first instance. What, if anything, did you do?
Well, we stationed over a dozen police officers to patrol the beach perimeters, and we also actually paid 3 shark spotters to watch the water from the beach.
Ma'am, what are shark spotters?
Basically, they're people who are trained to spot sharks in real time and then respond when they see one.
How about in the water? Did the city take any precautions there?
Yeah, we kept a constant line of communication with Dana Schott, who was patrolling the water in her boat.
Ma'am, I've got to ask, if the city was aware of a shark attack earlier in the summer, why didn't you just close the beaches?
Frankly, that seemed a bit extreme. I mean, we'd killed the shark. The experts couldn't show me any evidence that there was another shark out there, and closing the beach would have hurt our city in a pretty significant way.
How so?
We're a small summer town. I mean, the city's businesses rely on tourism. I was worried that closing the beach, when I didn't have any evidence right in front of me that there was another threat, would have hurt our community.
Objection, improper expert opinion, if I may.
You may.
Your Honor, I believe this time the testimony wasn't phrased with, I thought. She specifically testified, I didn't see any evidence that there was a threat. For this witness to testify whether or not there was evidence that a threat existed is an improper expert opinion because she's not a marine biologist. She can't tell whether what she's looking at is significant or might indicate a threat unless she has training on bite marks or patterns of migration or observing a beach and seeing if there is any risks. And because of that, we believe this is an improper expert opinion.
May I respond, Your Honor?
You may.
She prefaced that statement by saying she was worried that closing the beach would hurt the community. Your Honor, that's not an expert conclusion. It's the witness's thought process. And it's important for the jury to hear that because it goes to contest something that the plaintiff has to prove, as we said before.
Response, Your Honor?
You may.
Your Honor, what we're objecting to is the statement, I didn't see evidence that a threat existed. A lay witness can see evidence of a threat and not think that it's a threat because they lack the expertise to identify that. Because of that, this testimony would require her to have specialized or technical knowledge, and because of that, it's an improper expert opinion.
May I respond, Your Honor?
You may.
Counsel is misstating the record. The testimony on the record is that she didn't have any evidence right in front of her that there had been a shark attack based on what the expert did and did not provide. They're misstating the record here.
Your Honor,
Oh, okay. You can respond. Sorry.
Your Honor, again, thinking about another situation, if I'm not an expert in bird watching, I might look at a bird that's in distress and not know it's in distress. If I testified I didn't see any evidence the bird was in distress, I clearly do see that, but because I lack the technical expertise to actually analyze the situation accurately, that would be improper of me. Similarly, this witness testifying that they saw no evidence consistent with the threat would go outside of her lay witness knowledge.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Yes.
If they want to cross-examine this witness on her statement that she didn't have any evidence right in front of her when the expert came to her, they can do that, but it's a matter of weight, not admissibility.
Yeah, I think it's particularly important because, I mean, she's the decision maker here on behalf of the city. And so the jury does need to evaluate what knowledge she had at the time. Whether that opinion was the right opinion, obviously, is something that the jury's going to decide today. But I think that them still hearing her opinion is valid, even if it is just a lay witness opinion and not couched as an expert opinion. And I will give the jury some sort of instruction that says, they're not to take this as an expert opinion, but just what the mayor believed at the time. So I'll overrule the objection.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ma'am, could you finish telling the jury why you kept the beaches open?
Of course. I had no reason to believe that there was still a shark in our waters, and between that and significantly hurting the rest of our community, I chose to keep them open.
Thank you, ma'am. Your Honor, I have no further questions at this time.
Thank you, counsel. You can proceed with cross-examination whenever you're ready.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
You may.
Good morning, Mayor Weems. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Great. I'm just going to ask you a couple questions, and I just want to start by talking about the scope of your authority as mayor.
All right.
Because it's true, you're pretty powerful, right?
I lead the city, so yes.
Right. You actually have sole authority to shut down a beach, right?
Not necessarily, no.
Well, to be clear, you don't need anybody's permission to shut down the beach. If you want to shut it down, you can.
Sure, I can unilaterally make those decisions, but there's also checks and balances there. So, the rest of city council can also vote to close or reopen the beach.
So I want to talk about the state of your beach and a couple of those other incidents, because you're aware that the remains of Francesco Di Giaco were found on your beach on June 25th, right?
That's right.
You're aware that Dr. Schott examined those remains.
That's right.
She even told you that those remains, well, they could be the result of a shark bite.
She listed a shark bite as one of many things it could have been. We chalked it up to maybe being a boat propeller, but unfortunately, she was too far gone.
Right, but she did mention a shark bite.
Sure.
And she actually warned you to shut down the beach.
She said that if it was a shark, that we might have to, yes.
She warned you to shut down the beach to solve a shark issue, right?
If it was that, yes.
And after that warning from Dr. Schott to shut down the beach, you chose to keep it open, right?
That's right. I mean, we had no concrete evidence there was even a shark present. Unfortunately, given the state of the girl, we couldn't tell.
Well, let's talk about your choice versus Dr. Schott's recommendation, because you're not an expert in marine biology, right?
Certainly not.
You don't know how to analyze the bite and ligature marks of remains.
No,
But you were here when Dr. Schott testified, right?
that's right. I was.
You heard that she's an expert in exactly those two things.
Sure.
So after the expert told you to shut down the beach and you didn't, you're aware that a little boy died on your beach 4 days later?
That's right. Paul Parisi, he passed away.
Paul Parisi, right. And it was a shark attack. Wouldn't you agree?
That one was, yes. I spoke with Dr. Schott, but I also spoke with our medical examiner, and they both agreed.
Right. And after Paul Parisi died, a shark hunt started, right?
That's right.
And after that shark hunt, a group of fishermen somehow found and killed a tiger shark, right?
That's right.
You saw this tiger shark.
I did.
But you were never able to confirm that the tiger shark caught actually eliminated the threat in your waters.
I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, you were never able to confirm that the tiger shark was the one that actually killed Paul Parisi just 3 days prior to the catching, right?
You're right. That specific shark, no, although it seemed like that was the case.
You're saying it seemed like that was the case, but I want to talk a little bit about the probability of that. Because you're aware of Exhibit 3, some statistics regarding shark incidents on the coast of California.
That's right. I was shown that.
Ms. Baru, do you mind putting that on the screen real quick? No, you'd agree that you were aware of this before Dorothy's death.
That's right. Yes.
And from this, well, it says that there were 16 fatalities over 70 years.
That's right.
And every single fatality along the 840-mile coast of California was because of a great white shark, right?
The fatalities, yes, that's correct.
Right, so if it were a tiger shark that killed Paul Parisi, it would have been the first time in 70 years that would have occurred.
Looking at this, it would have been the first time that a fatality had occurred, but you're right.
I want to talk about why that shark hunt started, because the reason that shark hunt ever started was because Paul's mother issued a financial reward to hunt down a shark, right?
That's right. As you can imagine, she was devastated by the loss of her son, and she wanted to make sure we could catch the fish that did it.
Right, specifically, the reward she issued was $3,000 to, quote, find the shark that killed my son.
That's what she said, yes.
Right, the warning wasn't find the tiger shark that killed my son.
No,
The warning wasn't find the 6-foot-long gray shark that caught my son.
no, ma'am.
In fact, the reward she issued didn't include a single detail about the shark that anybody seeking the reward should be looking for.
That specific ad, no. I'm assuming the fisherman knew better.
So I just want to consider this. If somebody wanted to collect that $3,000 reward, they wouldn't have any details to go off as to the shark that they should catch.
Objection calls for speculation.
Can you explain that, counsel?
Yes, Your Honor, the question calls for the witness to speculate about what information and access a hypothetical person would have if they were trying to hunt this fish.
Response?
You may.
Your Honor, pursuant to Rule 701A, the answer to this question is in the rational perception of my witness. She's the mayor of the town. She's familiar with the exact wording of the reward and what the reward was for. And that wording was that You should catch the shark that killed my son. Therefore, for this witness to state that the people that can hear and get access to this reward don't have any specific details is within her rationally based perception, because the reward doesn't include any specific details, as we've already laid the foundation for.
May I respond, Your Honor?
You may.
They can ask about the wording on the warning, but to ask about what somebody would or would not know is speculative.
Your Honor, if I may,
Sure.
I specifically asked based on the wording of the reward or based on that reward. A person who wants to recover it won't have any details. I'm not asking based on the totality of circumstances of all available information ever, they would have no details, but rather specifically relating to the phraseology of that reward.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Okay, last time.
Your Honor, that wasn't my recollection of what the question actually was, but I understand we don't have a court reporter, so I'll defer to Your Honor.
I'm gonna overrule the objection. I think it's fair on cross. She can say if they had any details from the flyer or the reward poster.
Yes, Your Honor.
So, Mayor Weems, if somebody wanted to collect that $3,000 reward, they would have no defining details about what they need to look for in the shark.
If they were just looking at that reward poster, no. But I also don't know what sorts of conversations or searches were happening between the fishermen and the experts, so I wouldn't know.
Well, it's interesting you say that because the fishermen actually couldn't even tell you where they got that shark from.
I just never asked, but I assumed it was from our beach.
Well, I understand you assume it was from your beach, but you never confirmed that.
No, I felt no reason to.
And on top of that, they turned in that fish just one day after a $3,000 financial incentive was issued.
That's right, just one day, and in First City, we only have the one beach, so it had to have come from those waters.
Sure, Mayor Weems, but you actually never confirmed that it ate Paul Parisi or attacked Paul Parisi, right?
No, not myself.
But you could have, couldn't you?
If you could explain what you mean.
Sure, I'll be happy to. Because if you opened up that shark and found Paul Parisi's remains, you can be very sure that that shark did in fact kill Paul Parisi. Would you agree?
That's right. Dana Schott wanted to cut open the shark in front of the entire town, and I told her that if that shark had killed Paul, I didn't want him to spill out on the deck in front of the entire city. It would have been awful. So whether she did that and found something different, she never told me.
Is it your testimony that Dana Schott wanted to perform an autopsy in front of the entire town?
Well, she asked me to cut open the fish when we found the fish, so yes.
So it's your testimony that she says, I want to do this in front of the entire town.
Ma'am, she didn't say that, but there were people there. It was at the beach.
Right. But you're the mayor, right?
That's right.
You can tell people to clear the area, can't you?
Sure, but again, it wouldn't have been the best idea.
Sure. Well, I want to talk a little bit about the measures you took on July 4th because you issued a dozen police officers.
That's right.
But they were on the land, in the sand, right?
That's right. They were patrolling the perimeter of South Beach.
Yeah, but there are no sharks on the perimeter, right?
No, ma'am. They would have been looking into the water.
Right. And 3 shark spotters
That's right.
for an entire beach.
That's right.
And for your entire coastline of your beach, 1 marine biologist in a boat.
That's right. I mean, South Beach is big, but it's not gigantic, so that personnel, that it made sense.
And despite all those measures, well, those police officers didn't get to Dorothy in time.
No, they didn't.
Shark spotters, they didn't get to Dorothy in time.
No,
The 1 marine biologist on a boat didn't get to Dorothy in time.
no. Dr. Schott, she tried her best to get there after the bite, but she had lost too much blood, so no.
I want to talk a little bit about why you might be saying the things you're saying. Because you'd agree that money is very important to your city's survival.
Absolutely. We thrive on small businesses.
In fact, tourist money is how your city survives.
Sure,
And when the beach is closed, the tourists leave.
I assume so.
And by the way, you're up for re-election in a couple months.
That's right.
And tell me if you believe this is true. If there's one thing voters hate, it's a city in financial distress.
Of course, that's the job of the mayor, is to make sure that we can protect the most amount of people.
Thank you, Mayor Weems. I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Okay, any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
You may.
Ma'am, I want to pick up right where the plaintiff just left off. You're just to ask some question about the finances. Were the finances the only reason you kept the beaches open?
Of course not. I mean, it's no secret that First City is a summer city, but I didn't make the decision to keep the beaches open just to make a few extra bucks. I was based and looking off of the facts that I had and the facts that were given to me.
Thank you, ma'am. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Okay. I assume no recross on that. Counsel for the plaintiff?
No recourse, Your Honor.
Okay, this witness is excused. Anything further from the defense?
No, Your Honor, we rest our case in chief.
Okay. I know we'll go straight into closings. Let's take just 1 minute so you guys can collect your thoughts, if you need to write anything down from the last examination or anything. So it is 12:08 Eastern time. We'll make it 12:10 just to be even. You can take a second to collect your thoughts. Okay.
Sounds good, Your Honor.
All right, let's kick off closing for the plaintiff. You can proceed whenever you're ready.
Your Honor, Mr. Mueller, members of the jury, and may it please the court. One order could have saved a little girl's life. One order to close the beach. DeJocko dies on that beach, and Dr. Schott warns the mayor, hey, it could be a shark, shut it down. But the mayor doesn't give the order. After a shark hunt, after a little boy dies from a shark attack, Dr. Schott warns the mayor, hey, I think the real killer is still out there. The mayor doesn't give the order to close the beach. And because the mayor could issue one order to save a little girl's life, despite warning after warning, day after day, she didn't do it. And because of that, a 6-year-old little girl had her life taken. That's why, as the plaintiff, we sued the defendant for Dorothy's death, which, I'll remind you, means we had to prove that it was more likely than not that the beach was in a dangerous condition, that this danger was the proximate cause of Dorothy's death, that this danger was reasonably foreseeable, and that the defendant knew about this danger with enough time to remedy it. And we've absolutely met our burden in court today. To show you, we're going to walk through it part by part. First, was the beach dangerous? Absolutely. Because you heard that there was not 1, not 2, but 3 deaths in 10 days. And all of them, they came with warnings. Came with warnings from an expert marine biologist to the mayor that a shark could be involved. And we all agree that a great white shark was in South Beach's waters and killed Dorothy. That's a dangerous condition. So let's move on to that second part. Was that dangerous condition the proximate cause of Dorothy's death? Absolutely. We all agree that the great white shark killed Dorothy. So let's talk about that third part of our burden. This part's really important. Was the injury a foreseeable result of that danger? Well, absolutely. Let me put foreseeability in other terms. You see, when I was a little girl, my mother had this very expensive glass vase, and she put it on this very low coffee table. And when she was turned around, I got excited and I knocked over that glass vase. It shattered and went everywhere. And my mom, she gave me the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it fell on its own. Maybe it was the wind. So she cleaned it up and she got another vase and put it on that same low coffee table. But to my surprise, to her surprise, when she turned around, I knocked it over again. So what do you think she did the third time? Do you think she got another glass vase and put it on that low coffee table again for me to knock over? No. Because the chance that I'd knock it over again, as I had just done 2 other times, was foreseeable to her. So she got a durable vase and put it on a shelf I couldn't reach. That's exactly the situation the mayor was faced with. She was told there could be a white shark in your water. She was told the real killer could still be out there. And she just let the beach stay open on July 4th, leaving Dorothy vulnerable. The conditions, the danger that killed Dorothy were more than foreseeable. So let's talk about that last part of our burden. Did the defendant know about the dangers with enough time to prepare? Of course. On cross-examination, the defendant told you she has sole authority to shut down that beach. Sure, people can veto it after with votes, but in the moment, she can shut down that beach. So it actually takes less than seconds to shut down that beach. And she was warned on June 25th, after Jocko died. And she was warned the day before Dorothy died. And she chose not to shut it down. So we've met every element of our burden. So let's talk about what Mr. Mueller is gonna get up here and try and tell you. Because on opening statement, he told you their response was reasonable. So let's talk about what's reasonable. Is it reasonable to hear 3 times that there could be a shark in your water and do nothing about it? Is it reasonable to look at Exhibit 3, the statistics of shark incidents, which literally told the mayor all shark incidents that resulted in fatalities were because of great white sharks? To look at this and to think, oh, well, a tiger shark this time probably killed Paul Parisi, even though that's never happened in 70 years. Is that reasonable? Is it reasonable to hear a warning from a marine biologist that one shark can actually attract more sharks and create more danger and think, I think the beach is safe, even though 2 people just died from suspected shark attacks? It doesn't make any sense. Now, the mayor, she made a lot of excuses. She said, we couldn't be certain it was a shark attack. I had no reason to believe that there was a shark in the water, but members of the jury, that's just not reasonable. Let's say somebody told you, I tested your house, and it's possible that there's anthrax, a deadly biochemical in it. I'm not sure. I can't conclude with any certainty at all, really, but it's possible. Are you gonna just try your luck? No, you're gonna be better safe than sorry and take measures to prevent it. Because it's reasonable to act when somebody warns you that there's a deadly shark in your waters that can eat little girls. It's reasonable to take precautions, and she didn't do it. Mr. Mueller, he's going to get up here and tell you there were a dozen police officers on the shore. There were shark spotters. There were boats, but those weren't reasonable measures either. What are police officers on the land going to do when somebody 7 yards into the water is being attacked by a shark? Or excuse me, 70 yards. What is one boat going to do if there's a shark attack 40 yards away? What are shark spotters going to do if that shark attack isn't nearby? Nothing. Those aren't reasonable measures. The only reasonable measure is to shut down the beach until the problem is solved. The statistics told her 100% of attacks happen from great whites, and all they caught was a tiger shark. She knew the warnings after warnings after warnings that the marine biologist gave her, and she did not. So there were no reasonable steps taken, no matter what Mr. Mueller might tell you. One order could have saved a little girl's life, and it was never made. And that's why, at the end of today's trial, when I come before you again on rebuttal, I'll ask you to find the defendant, First City, liable. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Counsel for the defense, you can proceed whenever you're ready.
Yes, Your Honor. Members of the jury, their response was reasonable. 75. That's how many years it's been since the state of California started tracking shark attacks on their coast. 75 years. And in those 75 years, the first city and South Beach saw one attack. One attack. But the plaintiff wants you to think the city should have known that another was going to happen again? Should have known that after they caught one shark, another was going to pop up just a few days later? It's not reasonable. The evidence has shown that their response was reasonable. You see, today it was the plaintiff's burden to prove that the city should have known the water wasn't safe enough to swim. If they failed to do that, your job is done. But if you think they met their burden, you have to ask yourself whether the city took reasonable steps to keep people safe. Today, we gave you 2 reasons to find for the defense, and let's go through them right now. The first reason, the beach was safe. As the judge will tell you, the plaintiff had to prove that the beach was in a dangerous condition. So let's state the obvious here. The ocean is dangerous. You can get pulled into a riptide. You can get cut on coral or slammed against sharp rocks. But today, the plaintiff's case, it isn't about those ordinary dangers. It's about one specific danger, shark attacks. So let's take a step back. Let's talk about some of the ways we might accept someone to prove that a beach is dangerous because there are sharks. Data, statistics on shark sightings, statistics on shark encounters, on shark attacks. I mean, look at this data. Now, the only thing the plaintiff had to say about this data was, well, this was only for a great white shark. Exactly. That's the point. The city had never seen the kind of shark that attacked that girl before. And that's why the plaintiff focused so much on the first time a shark attack happened at the beach. But as soon as that attack happened, you heard how the city responded. They closed the beach, caught the shark, killed it. So the plaintiff's case, their entire case, hinges on one thing: that the city should have known the danger would be back. They didn't prove that. I mean, sure, they tried to suggest that there was another shark out there. Their witness gets up there on cross-examination and says there was evidence it was still out there. But did you see that evidence? No. Did the mayor see that evidence? No. No forensic evidence, no tracking data, no videos, no photos, nothing. They want to get up here and say that the city should have believed the expert, but she didn't give them any reasons to believe her. And remember, members of the jury, we can't look at this case with hindsight. It's not about what we know now. It's about what they knew or should have known then. With no other sightings, no other reports, no other concrete evidence that a second shark even existed, the city couldn't have known that its beach was anything but safe. They haven't met their burden. And for that reason alone, when you go back to deliberation and you fill out this verdict form, you can write no next to question 1. And if you do that, your job is done. If they didn't prove it was dangerous, you have to find for the defense. But we gave you a second, separate reason to find for the defense, and it's the third question on that form: whether the city took reasonable steps to keep the beach safe. We've proven that they did. And that's the second reason. The city took reasonable steps to keep the beach safe. Now, I want to be clear. We don't have to prove that what the city did was right. We have to prove that what they did was reasonable. Precautions, not perfections. And we've shown you that the city's precautions were reasonable. They hired 12 police officers to patrol the beaches. They put people who were trained to spot sharks near the water. And they literally had a shark expert in the water looking for sharks. But the plaintiff gets up here in their closing argument and they say that's not good enough. What the city should have done is just close the beach completely. But for how long? I mean, what's the end point here? Until they pull every shark out of the Pacific Ocean? Until they examine every inch of the ocean floor? That's just not reasonable. Then they get up here on cross-examination and they say that despite all the measures you took, they're admitting they took measures. They say, despite all the measures they took, you still didn't see that shark before it hurt that girl. Exactly. None of those people, not the officers, not the trained spotters, not their own expert, saw the shark that killed her until it was too late. They want you to expect that they could have seen it coming before. Where's the jury? What happened to that little girl on July 4th was horrible. It's a tragedy. And when something so tragic happens, it's easy to want to point the finger at someone else. But today, it's your job as jurors to separate the tragedy from the liability. The city did what they could. Their response was reasonable. And that's why we ask that you find the city not liable. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Any rebuttal from the plaintiff?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, you can proceed whenever you're ready.
Now, Mr. Mueller's excuse for the mayor's actions is this hasn't happened before, so they couldn't foresee it. That doesn't make sense. That's not reasonable. If a forest fire has never hit a town, but there's every indication, dry bushes, lightning, you're not gonna not do anything just because it hasn't happened before. Mr. Mueller, he asked you, what's the end point? Well, I'll tell you what the end point is. I'll tell you what the reasonable response would have been. It would have been to perform an autopsy on that tigerfish and confirm with certainty that she eliminated the threat. But she didn't. So she left the safety of Dorothy to chance. And you know why? That tiger shark didn't kill Paul Parisi. It was a great white shark. Because Exhibit 3 told you that. With 100% accuracy, it's only great white sharks that result in fatalities, but apparently the mayor wants you to believe that Parisi was the exception. It doesn't make sense. Find the defendant liable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, counsel. Judges, please submit your ballots, and then when we get the all clear from Phil, we'll give very, very, very brief comments.
All right, I have all the ballots, so I'll ask our judges to give, I will emphasize what Danny said, brief comments. They have another trial. At least one of these competitors has another trial in 2.5 hours. And as soon as we are done with those comments, I will announce the winner right here. And then the winner of this trial is going to head on over to the other link, the UCLA Zoom link, for the coin flip for the final round. And I will meet you over there and do the coin flip. So with that, judges, take it away.
All right, guys. Great job. I can see why you guys are in this play-in tournament here. We've been instructed to give you guys each one comment on our favorite thing you did in trial and one suggestion. So I'll kick it off and then I'll send it to my fellow judges. Neha, my favorite thing you did was your opening. I think that you're so passionate and you're so dynamic and you started off just so strong for the round. I think that starting off, and then that leads into my suggestion, starting off that strong, find softer moments as well. I think that if you, oh, and sorry, Nugget apparently also liked your opening. She always comes up whenever I start talking on Zoom, which is great for work. Anywho, sorry, long story short, find those softer moments as well. When you have variance in tone and passion, that's how you keep the jury engaged, by having those changes. Will, I really, really loved your cross-examination. I think you exercised very appropriate judgment on when to just, control the witness yourself and when to ask me to step in. I think that was a very good call. My suggestion for your opening is to be a little bit more confident. I felt like you started off a little bit slow, and because of that, I was like, oh, I'm not sure if he's going to kind of get more comfortable as we go throughout trial. It was very clear by the cross that then you were comfortable, but just try to start off a little bit stronger on that. But overall, great work to both of you. And I will turn it over to Marek, just because he was one of my students.
Hi, great job to both of you. To plaintiff's counsel, I will say the one thing I was impressed by is on cross-examination, you looped really well when the witness would say, like, I suppose, I guess, and you said, or it seemed that way. Well, let's talk about how it seemed that way. That I thought was really impressive. I think in the closing you were a little fast. So just trying to kind of balance it out, but overall great job. Defense counselor, I think you were unfazed by a witness who was giving you a hard time, and that was super impressive. Like Danny said, you knew when to go to her. Judge Kunkel, actually. And in terms of what you can improve on, I think you had a lot of like nice, almost sarcastic moments in your closing when you're telling us we should empty the Atlantic Ocean to search for these sharks. I thought that was great. Having a little more of that sass in your cross, I think would benefit you. But great job to both of you.
All right. How about we go to Julian?
Hey y'all. So I'll start with plaintiff counsel. I thought you really have like a nice presence throughout, and you've really do a good job of establishing your credibility from the outset. So I'm kind of hanging on everything that you say, believing everything that you're putting out there from beginning to end. So I think you really just hold a really good presence. You're an advocate for sure. I would say on the closing, I would have liked to see you focus on the facts and the evidence a little bit more rather than the narratives that we went on, like the personal anecdotes. I understand the facts are kind of hard for plaintiffs, so I see why you want to reach for that, but I think just hone it back to the facts would be really helpful. And then for the defense, I think from beginning to end, you hold a really strong grasp on the narrative, like from each single part, and especially in the closing. I think you really wrap it all up really well, so we get your perspective that just really shines through, and your advocacy just does really good on that part. And then I'll kind of echo back to Judge Kunkel on the opening statement, just a little more of establishing yourself in the courtroom. Maybe it is just a confidence thing at the very beginning, but if you can just grab whatever confidence you had in the closing and bring that to your opening, I think you're golden. And then I'll pass it to Murray.
Thank you, Julian. My comment of stuff to improve on is the same for both of you, so I'll just start with that. I think I liked a lot of the objections. I think when we have like a checkmark ballot, it's very easy to like just make every single objection that like, I don't know, I just you want to like over object almost, because you're aware of that check mark, which obviously you should be, but I think you can still be more decisive in like what things you want to object to and what things you want to let slide. Like if it's a bad or not like a bad objection or one that you're not really sure you're going to win, like it might not be worth it. Because you can get the check mark for like responding really well to objections, but you might lose it if you make like bad objections or like losing objections. Not that any of the objections were bad. I just think that you could have been more like decisive in where you decided to do that. But then my good thing for the plaintiff's counsel, I really liked on cross. There was a moment where you were like going through like what the reward was, and you were going through this like the person who would be looking for a shark. I don't know. I just like really like that fact because that was a really good fact for the defense, I thought, and I thought you flipped it well. And then for defense counsel, also on cross, I loved like your witness said something and you were like, you're telling me as a marine biologist, you can't tell me this like simple thing that a marine biologist told me. I thought that was really good. So really, really good job, both of you, and good luck.
All right, Alex, last one.
Yeah, so I'll start with plaintiff's counsel. My thing for you is I really liked your closing argument. I thought you made great points and summed up your case very well. And my one comment is also on your closing. I think in the future you should try to pick the moments where you're either using a hand gesture or moving somewhere on your screen a little more deliberately. It felt like you were doing it a lot, and when you do it, and when you really pick and choose those moments, it can add a lot of great emphasis to your closing. And I think it would only benefit you if you chose those moments just a little more carefully. And then for defense counsel, I really liked your responses to objections. I thought you thought well on your feet. You always seemed calm and confident when responding to the ones made by plaintiff's counsel. And I think my only constructive thing, I would echo what Marique said. I think you could be a little more dynamic at points. And that would really emphasize a lot of what you're saying, because you're making really great points. But if you manage to, make your highs higher and your lows lower, it'll come across even better than it already is.
All right. Great job, everyone. Phil, I think you've got the results. We won't make
Great.
them sit in anxiety any longer.
No, I won't. Thank you to our judges. I want to remind our competitors that the winner of this trial should head over to the UCLA link for the coin flip for our side selection for our final at 3 p.m. Not going to belabor the point, but I do want to recognize these two competitors, two very good competitors, Neha Das from NYU, an All-American competitor, and Will Mueller, a member of NYU's nationals team and one of the highest, had one of the highest award counts of anyone who applied to this tournament this year. Without any further ado, this was a split decision. The winner of this semifinal headed to the final at 3 p.m. is Will Mueller. Congratulations, Will. Congratulations, Neha, for qualifying for this event. Will, you want to meet us over on the UCLA link for the side selection?